everybody. Good evening. It's great to see all of you here again. It's been a little while since we've done a review, so I'm glad to see such a positive turnout. We've been dying to do this book for a while now, Soul Talk, and I hope I'm saying that right. I guess I get one of the reviewers to correct me later, but Soul Talk, and it's been a book that's gotten a lot of attention. The creator had some issues in a Comic Con before for being CG, so it's definitely one that we needed to give the right amount of focus to. It's still crowdfunding right now on Fund My Comics, so everybody should definitely go check that out and pick up a copy. And yeah, hopefully everybody will enjoy the evening's festivities. So without further, let me jump into the chat, see who's here tonight. Got Shifter. He's dropping racial epitaphs. Fortunately, Elasmit isn't here. He's sleeping one off after getting his fill of steak with the CG Kings. So they certainly shoved a lot of meat into him, from what I hear. Eric Grant, hello. Great to see you. Thanks for being here. Caleb, Wild Art, yeah. I tried to pick out the best pieces I could for the thumb. Thought it'd be good to showcase some of the excellent art that's in the book. So I hope you guys look forward to seeing more of that during the review. Dr. Ben is here. He says, hell yeah. And of course, that yellow spider guy, F off Well Read Comics. Yes, F off to me, indeed. Hello back. It's great to see you. I hope my audio isn't all jacked. Let me quickly adjust. Get some of that echo out. Kimosabi is here. Says, have fun, lads. I'm doing a review of it myself, so I won't hang about to avoid spoilers. Well, we'll look forward to that, Kimo, and let me know when you do that. I'll definitely share and retweet your review as well. So Kimo's actually guest reviewer. He comes on a lot. He's got great insights, so everybody should go check out his channel for reviews. He does a really great job as well. So Matthew Fowler is here. Shigama Puddle Drinkers. Shigama Fowler. And Wilberforce, he says, greetings to Fowler. That's sweet. He wants some of that puddle juice too. Aldous says, greetings, salutations, and general pleasantries to all, except well read. Wah, wah. Okay. I'm going with the corny jokes tonight, so forgive me. I haven't streamed in 2 weeks, guys. It's going to take me a bit of time to flex my streaming vocal cords again. We've got Linkovich. He's also dropping the Shigamas. Mad Ruth. He's going to be hanging out, I guess, while we talk about the book. And H is for Heretic. Greetings. So I hope you dig the review tonight. H, I haven't seen you in the chat before. F Jabba and F Well Read says, gentleman, Mr. Crescent. Healthy atmosphere in the chat. Oh, and Elasmat is here. Okay, so he's not sleeping one off. Did you have to go live? Couldn't you just pretend you did? Well, I could, but I couldn't trick all the panelists. I mean, they're here, and they're waiting for the review to get started. So, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So tonight, joining us, we've got, of course, Aldous.
Greetings, Well Read. It's always an absolute pleasure to be here. I am blinking in Morse code. Come and save me. Call someone. We're being held against our will.
Zero sarcasm detected, so passes the smell test. Speaking of smell test, we've also got Twitless.
Really?
Wah, wah, wah.
Does not pass the smell test.
You need a soundboard for this at this point.
Well, and I have one here. Here's Moonshine.
That's good.
Good evening, Carrot.
Good evening, Moonshine. I don't know how these introductions just manage to like fall into place all on their own, organically and naturally.
It certainly has nothing to do with the talent of the host.
Exactly. Completely untalented in every which way possible. We've got Deja Brutal. New people joining us. I love to see it. Hey, guys. Thanks for being here, Deja. Hope you enjoyed the review. Yeah. Soltac.
Do you guys... to that guy. Not him. Where is
I'm not clicking.
Deja? Yeah, look at that's an interesting avatar. Is that the Mad Hatter? The Batman?
Yeah, and Batman. Nice piece. Definitely. Soul Talk, do you guys know a little background about this book? What's the history of this project? Aldous, are you familiar at all with the lore of Soul Talk?
I am. I actually had I had the creator Mad Ruth on the Gutter this past Friday, and I've spoken to him a number of times. Whether it was on our show over on Jeremy Ice and Fire's channel, which the former Witching Hour, which was our Tuesday show, or the Saturday Comic Talk show. But yeah, it's a story that he'd been working on for a number of years, off and on, and he served his time in the military, retired, and had a chance to be inspired by what was going on in Comicsgate, and finished it. So he produced it all himself, and the man actually, not only did he write the script, he very impressively thumbnailed every page personally for his artist. So lots of positives to talk about here. There's some negatives too, but lots of positives from a creator point of view. Really took it seriously.
He had a bit of controversy in Canada. He was canceled from a con there for being CG, from what I understand. And that elevated his profile very heavily. A lot of CG came out to promote his book and support him, because we love to make sure that we monetize the hate as much as possible. And when somebody gets canceled, we're there to step in. Put this actually before I get canceled. Am I saying it right? Soltac? You're the academic. You help me.
I don't know if I can help you when we start moving into words that are made up.
Words that are made up are supposed to be your forte.
What? What are you talking about?
Isn't that what you study with your
words that are made up by French weirdos who want to redefine reality? Maybe.
Yeah. Your fake books.
Yeah.
Your made up school. Pretend friends.
No, I took the title as being Soltac, given the context of it within the story, which is solar or solar system tactical. So solar tactical, Soltac.
Okay. Yeah, we'll go with Soltac, because I have no idea what I'm talking about.
Clearly.
Let's bring up the campaign. Like I mentioned, it's on Fund My Comic. It was also on Indiegogo. Let's share the Indiegogo first. So here we go. Raised $5K, 96 backers, not too shabby. So definitely considered a success in the indie crowdfund standards. And closed with 60 backers. So what do we get here with that investment? $45 for both books. Art not too shabby. It's, let's see, 88 pages of story. Ouch. That is a hefty, hefty book. So
yeah, thanks for making us read all of this. Well,
right. Yeah.
You guys make it sound like a penance. You're supposed to be enjoying this.
Oh, the book was enjoyable. Being here with you, well.
I mean, I think Velnet puts it into words best. So there you have it. Yeah. And then, of course, this book is also available on Fund My Comic right now. I'll drop the link for that, but that's doing actually better than the Indiegogo. I'll share it actually, since the numbers are more impressive there. I guess word of mouth has spread, and people are finding out about the book. And it's got 123 backers, 6,500 already raised. So very nice. That link is going to be out in the chat. If you guys want to go ahead and pick it up. Yeah, speaking of picking it up, let's pick up with a synopsis of the book. Do I dare ask? I'll ask you, Twitless. I know you love this. I wouldn't take it away from you.
Let's see here. When a research station is destroyed, it appears like space samurai Misha Otsu is the culprit, but the bounty hunter sent to collect on her head, Merchant of Death Dexter Barrow, finds himself fighting his way through samurai, robots, and mercenaries. Who was truly responsible for the station attack, and what deeper mysteries lie at the heart of it all? Find out in the first installment of Soltac, a solar system spanning epic of galactic proportions.
I will, without giving spoilers yet, I do like the questions that it asked in that trailer that Twitless just gave actually are answered by the end of the book, which sometimes you don't actually get. But 88 pages does give you a lot of storytelling space, I suppose.
Well, it does.
I would agree with that, Moonshine. It surprisingly does that for a first time book. I was impressed with both the structure of the pitch and what it actually accomplishes in the context of the story.
The fact that it tells a complete story is
I don't know if it's complete. It's not complete.
Get ahead of ourselves. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying it answers the pitch questions.
It tells a lot. it tells a lot more than many other books I think we've even reviewed on this channel, in terms of, instead of being like just the pilot episode, this feels like almost an entire season's worth of material crammed into 88 pages.
I will say
There's
because
a
of the
lot going
choice,
on.
because of the
Go ahead.
choice to tell the whole story, it does seem, I guess, rushed at points. But
There's some rushing that goes on. It also seems to get lost in the weeds at times, but it does find its way out. You don't have an extraneous amount of pages where it just drifts away off the plot line. It always does find itself on its back on course, but it is a little clunky in how it gets there.
So is it just the number of story threads that it's trying to work through, or does it just not handle anything as effectively as it should?
I think a good choice is, I mean, some minor scene switching's going on, but it pretty much focuses on the main character and the people that come in and out of his story. So there's a B story, but it's involved with the main character. It's not like you're going all over the solar system without.
I slightly disagree in that B character becomes the main character sometime around the latter half of what I would consider Act 2. The main character is basically introducing protagonist A introduces protagonist B, and the book becomes more a POV about that. I don't know. Are we spoilering tonight?
Just say her name.
Yeah. So the girl becomes the main character for the last half of the book.
Twitless, give us that name again.
It was a Misha Otsu.
Thank you.
There you go.
She's space samurai chick, you know.
Yes, the Neo space samurai chick becomes the primary character, and that's one of the issues I had getting to the end of the book. Is there's kind of this climactic ending for protagonist A, and for Dexter, and then we continue on, and I really thought the book just should have ended there. We've had this issue before with a couple other ones where you have a really nice closed out ending that you have answers to questions, but it still leaves more, but you have kind of a conclusion of an arc as best as you can with the construct you've got here. And then we continue on, and that addition onwards just doesn't hit like I think it was meant to hit.
No, I completely agree with well, at least the sentiment on the ending, it ends in a really awkward position.
Reset the clock on Twitless and I disagreeing, please.
Oh no, we're about to, yeah.
2 seconds till doomsday, guys.
Yeah.
Reverse course.
I think this book is the polar, if I'm comparing other projects that we've reviewed recently, this is the polar opposite of Mavericks. And I say that in a good way, and I think I also mean it in a bit of in a negative as well. One of my biggest issues with Mavericks, I know Moonshine disagrees with me on this, but my biggest issue with Mavericks is the fact that I think the two books have similar page lengths. They're both pretty long, like they're both around 80-ish pages. Whereas I feel like Mavericks doesn't even get out of the gate in terms of where it ends, narratively speaking, before it's like time for the next, book to fund. Whereas Soltac, like I said, I felt like I almost feel like I have my neck hurts from just the G-forces of leaving orbit with the amount of material that
that was horrible.
gets thrown at me. I mean, we got to have space puns. It's a space.
No, we don't.
Okay.
We don't.
Strangely enough, if you consider all the elements of this story, it actually is very similar to Impossible Stars. It's just the different way certain things are come about, I guess.
So
both solar system limited, possibly getting out of the solar system kind of topics being addressed.
But structurally speaking, whereas in Mavericks, in books like Mavericks, where you have a single maybe conflict or action that's being kind of stretched across, dozens of pages, you have here, I think in the first 14 pages, there was at least 2, if not 3 scene changes. And 2, if not 3, like actions and plots happening, essentially. It was so much material. And so in a sense, it's almost old school comics in that way, which may be all this I would assume appeals to you a bit in terms of like it's not like Spawn, an Image where it's like, hey, let's take 3 issues to get nowhere in the plot.
No, and in that regard, exactly. I would, a book like this tells me a lot about a creator, and my assumption, and we talked a little bit about it. Like I said, Ruth was my guest on just this last Friday on the Gutter. He's an old school comics fan, 80s, 90s. And you see that, and you can see that in a variety of things, but it's shown in his story pacing. It's shown in that he's not afraid to actually put words on a page. This book is dense, and it hits in a lot of really good ways. For an amateur effort, first timer, it's a really good success. I think I do disagree with you in that it succeeds in a lot of the places that Maverick succeeded as well. They're very similar in where they succeed. Their focus is just in different elements. And I think they both miss in totally different areas. This did arguably it told a fairly complete story. You could, like I said, if you take off those last few pages with the Neo Samurai and just end with what happens at the very conclusion on Mars, I think the book would work a lot better. It really does need a pretty deft editor's hand, though. There's a lot of, like we mentioned, of plots kind of drifting, and it's not as tight as it probably could have been. And I think that would have helped some of the pacing issues that you just mentioned.
Well, speaking of pacing, I think you and I are going to be on different sides in terms of where I fall on some of the writing.
Yes, everyone in the world is currently shocked that we fall on separate sides.
Surprise. But so for me, the positives, I like the fact the story was large in scope. I think the world building was interesting. I like that there was a lot happening. That it was a nice change of pace from some of the books I've read, where it's like, wow, I just read that entire book, and I feel like it was just the preface to what's supposed to happen. A lot happens in this book. If you're looking for a book where a lot happens, pick up Soltac. The main character for most of it, Dexter Barrow, he's a pretty fun protagonist in a sort of Han Solo kind of way. Definitely rough exterior, gruff kind of a guy, but he's kind of got that heart of gold that I think a lot of people are going to appeal to a lot of readers. However, I have to discuss, this book made me delineate the difference between like storytelling, world building, and then literally script, as in text represented on the page. Because, oh my gosh, this is, you did kind of allude to this. You said it's textually dense. I would say that it's a miss for me if we were using that terminology, because the way I see the text being represented is a bit haphazard. I think it's a little sloppy and overindulgent at times. If you want to go to I think it's page 2 is a great example of this in action. So this is an introductory scene. So I actually be page 3 then.
Oh, okay.
So I guess I'm one page off. Okay, so that panel on the right, you have a piece of dialogue. You have a character who is narrating to himself, and then you have a third narration text box of additional omniscient narrator information.
I only count 2 text boxes. Where's the third?
No. There's if we look at panel 2, right?
You mean the blue and the green?
The blue and the green, yeah. So you have a text, a dialogue being spoken. So the character is speaking in dialogue. And then I believe the blue is the character narrating to himself. So he says, I can resume my own project. And then you have a third omniscient narrator who says, always an underachiever, the isolated Acheron facility offered him the perfect opportunity. So there's technically 3 characters talking in this panel, but only one of them is actually in the room. This is where the amateur side of the writing really comes out and kind of rears its ugly head. Because
yes, and this is where an editor should have stepped in, and you could have easily taken those 10 narration boxes, and that could have just been included as dialogue. It's not it, and that's what I'm saying. This book needed a deft editor's hand because it's clunky and it just needed a little bit of streamlining, because you can take both of those tan dialogue boxes, and there's a few other ones that occur throughout the book, and you can just rewrite dialogue in those panels so that your cross narration fits with your verbal communication within those panels, and then it straightens it out, and you don't have that problem.
Sure, but that's fine, and that would solve it. But book as is, this is a problem. There's just too much text, and I think
Right.
that part
Well,
of it is.
I'm going to take a step back on you there. I mean,
Okay.
you're blaming the writer for that, and that's not this book actually did have an editor. It was edited by Red Valkyrie,
Mhm.
and if we're going to take the book as a whole, then Red Valkyrie here has a huge miss, because this is a bad editing job. I understand the point. Yes, as a writer, the writer should have known better than to do this, but the editor should have caught it. So if we're going to review a book,
Right, we'll share
we
the
gotta
blame.
point to
Okay,
where it is.
I'll share. I can spread the blame. That's fine. Okay, I'll point out the problem, but I'm totally fine with disseminating the guilt. But overall, there's a lot of tertiary dialogue. It leads to unnecessary noise. I don't need to see every piece of radio chatter, and it makes reading some of these pages a slog. I'm sorry. That is a problem with the book, and I agree that that editing would help catch that. But it even gets to the point where there's like I think this is page, like it's around page 14 or 15, and they have a piece of dialogue or of text that's basically, this is where it's located in terms of where the scene is, and then there's an additional text box to say, oh no, more information about where this is. So it almost trips over itself at times to tell you a lot of material, and part of the problem is the fact that the rhythm of this book is really wonky.
Yes,
To
I would agree with
clarify
that.
what Twitless is talking about, it's telling you it's some detention center with, all fancy letters and stuff. And then it just tells you, oh, this is where West
in Kentucky.
Virginia is.
Yeah, or
West
is it-
Virginia.
Oh, it's West Virginia. Yeah. But yeah, so it's stuff like that. But then after getting all of this dialogue and text and stuff, a whole chunk of it ends up sometimes being unnecessary, or it feels unnecessary because you get all this information and then the character who gets introduced dies within like 5 seconds, or 2 pages, or you get introduced to a whole bunch of material and then the characters are only there for 2 pages. And so all that material you're reading and processing and trying to file away somewhere, because it's a strange, it's not an alien world, but it's alien in the sense it's strange to us because it's so far in the future.
Well,
And you want to read this?
well said. Well,
Which part am I reading?
all of it.
All of it. Oh, you're talking about the comic. Well Hung and Dung says, a penance. Imagining living in a world where Twitless exists. I feel like I was reincarnated here because I was a Nazi in a previous life.
yeah, this is
Yes.
what
The
Saturday
wah,
night would have been
wah.
like if they would have won the war.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anyway,
All right. Well, so a rhythm that's very disjointed, and
the rhythms, the book is sometimes completely off rhythm. Like Eisner came to mind in terms of how like you pace like dialogue between characters, and sometimes he'll cram so much dialogue, and I would think to myself, there needs to be an extra panel here. This character is saying way too much for what this panel has
You're
there.
getting a compliment now, Twitless, so don't feel
right.
bad.
Okay. Yay.
oh, but it's from Morgue,
Wah wah.
so that cancels out.
Okay.
No, to go into what Twitless is saying, it does. It at times it rushes through events that you want them to spend more time on for both character development and plot contrivance means, and at other times it drifts aimlessly for 3 or 4 pages through things that don't matter in the long context. They seem to matter at the time, but in the context of the full story, they don't. And yes, you're trying to build up, a little bit of suspense, and there's a little bit of mystery to what's going on, but it's not really handled well. And I think there is definitely room for improvement. And as much as I complimented earlier the fact that and it is a compliment, because a lot of creators and writers in modern comics are afraid to put a lot of words on the page. this is it's a little too dense at times. Some of these pages just become a little bogged down by the
You're being nice. I'm sorry. You're being nice.
I'm gonna get mean here in a minute, because
Okay.
as soon as we get into general specifics, I've got a pretty long. I stopped at a certain point, just because the continuity issues became a little bit too much.
For me, like I'm more forgiving for continuity to a point. For me, I just got to a point where I was just going, okay, what random thing is going to be thrown in my face now? All space ninja clowns. Okay, great. A final boss who gets introduced and then like it basically is wiped off the board within a page or so after having lore dumped. And then a bloody, is it a ferret or a weasel that basically does like a
Earl and Junk.
Okay.
Earl and Junk.
It's
This
all of
was
this
something.
stuff.
You are the wet blanket to the fun party, man. They are frozen flying feral ferrets, and if you don't love that alliteration, I don't know what the hell's wrong with you. But you need to go and get your head checked, man.
I like the ferrets, but why did the ferret have to say quote Jesus and then
Because they speak.
No, but like oh gosh, it was just,
or they push their thoughts into the world. I don't know if they actually speak, but
it got weird. It got weird in a way where
that was the best part.
It got weird.
Every other page, I was just
You're
like,
fine with everything else until you get to the flying feral ferrets of fun, and then it's like, no, I can't possibly have you're on record now. You hated them.
Well, Red, show us the ferrets, please.
Which page?
I like the ferret. I do. I didn't like the ferret being messianic and going, it is finished.
Clearly, he doesn't want blasphemy coming from
I
his
don't
ferret
want blasphemy
friends.
from the ferrets. The sacrilege was a bridge too far.
I think it was a wonderful allusion to Beastmaster, and any Mark Singer fan out there will appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah, Twitless. It wasn't expecting you to.
I mean, the ferrets are emblematic, but I mean, the basic story is kind of, you've read this story, but it really goes off in different directions constantly. It's not really like anything else. So, I mean, the ferrets are just the most obvious example.
So the craziness was simultaneously, I do want to clarify on this. The craziness, especially towards the end, I got a little tired of having new things dumped on my plate. But there was a certain point where you get kind of used to the craziness, and it did become kind of it did have a certain charm to it. I won't lie. Like there was
10 pages after that, well read, maybe.
Okay, so 42.
You'll see the monkey holding them before they're released. That'll work.
The monkey holding them. I think it's
orangutan.
Yeah, the tang.
There it is. There you go.
Giles.
Zoom in on that panel.
It's Giles, the
blaspheming ferrets.
Yeah.
Since we're on the orangutan, there's one thing that made that it was obvious that was this orangutan made me think of.
Donkey Kong from
No. There we
this
go.
Kong has a funny face.
If you remember Captain Simeon and the Space Monkeys.
I don't.
Nobody remembers.
If you did.
If I did, yes. If only.
If only. You're as disappointing as well read.
Oof. Jesus, man.
I know.
That's the worst insult I've had in at least a quarter. Damn.
Everyone say hi to Camel Moon.
Oh, hi, Camel.
Hello, Camel.
Hi, Camel Moon.
Hi to me. He said no one said hi to me. He wants someone to say hi to me. But he wants it said that either.
Yeah. Well, maybe next stream.
Why is Moonshine here again?
Who's got literal crickets in the background?
Who does have them? Oh, that might be me.
That's
okay.
Sorry. All right, I'm going to be on mute.
It's so appropriate that they're you.
I know, exactly. It was
I'm going to be on mute for like the rest of this stream. You'll know I'm talking when the crickets start sounding. All right, guys. Talk about more stuff.
All right. Well, I can go into this let's see what we have. It's in the first action sequence. The book opens with a prologue, if you will, to an event that then kind of drives the action, or at least the plot, from the rest of the book. The artwork on panel or page 6 I really appreciated what was done there. And this is where I've got to give Mad Ruth a lot of credit as somebody that laid out these pages. It's impressive that he did it this way. That's page 6 that's a cue, by the way, well read, to go to page 6. Sorry.
He's not here. That's the problem. Well,
this show just keeps on getting better and better, guys. We're a well-oiled machine at this point. But so, like I said, so there's that. And then later on, the first action beat when you get into the main meat of the book is the main character, Dexter, he's a bounty hunter. He's collecting a bounty. In a fight with a gentleman named Castor, he gets stabbed. And the wound is shown, the stabbing is shown, and then it's shown that Castor hits the knife at least one time in their fight. And then the comment of you're losing a lot of blood is specifically mentioned. And then nothing, absolutely nothing after that. The wound is not addressed, nor is why Dexter is able to continue on despite the blood loss. It's just, yeah, he got stabbed. And then he's fine. And then he's in an office with his feet kicked up.
I chalked it up to just future cyborg nonsense.
And again, one line fixes that.
You're right. My brain just was like, okay, cyborgs, woohoo.
Right. And then later on, he's trying to get some extra equipment. And they're like, you don't have the right requisition forms. And he goes, well, how about some classic printed media? And he hands over an issue of Cyberfrog and Black Flag. Now, this excited me because this means that Black Flag in the future actually will be printed.
In the 83rd century of
humanity. Yes, we may have to wait 1,000 years, but eventually Black Flag will be done.
So the continuity error I had there was that he's being basically put back into Soltac. And he's being like funded by them, but then when he goes to get equipment from them, they say no. And I was like, what?
That's his second round of getting equipment. He's going back and asking for a bunch of specialized stuff that he doesn't have the authority. Now, granted, again, that could have been explained a lot. That's the general theme of this whole thing is everything could have been done better.
Okay.
They bounce around and it's cumbersome in how you get to certain points. It needed to be thinned down a little bit, not necessarily in page count, but in some of where the dialogue directs you. The dialogue is just a little loose, or more than a little loose at times. There's a lot of this when they go from Quantico to Kalimantan. There's no page separation. It's actually at the bottom of an odd numbered page. And then that we switch locations. I never like to see location changes within a page. Always do it. I prefer to see it on a page turn. If you've got to do it at least on the next page. That was just a little clunky, and that happens multiple times. And then, just a lot of little stuff like that. Overall, the artwork on this overall was surprising. It was usually pretty well done, and the panel layouts are exceptional. The panel layouts in particular, there's a lot of really neat stuff being callbacks. It's not just standard grids. They go with rhomboid styled patterns. They go with offset panels. They go with inset panels. It's a really nice mix of not being afraid to violate the gutter, although there is some inconsistency on the lettering of violating the gutter when it's not necessarily needed. Specifically, that can be shown on page 15. With panel 2, there's no reason for that bubble to violate the gutter, and it happens a couple other times as well. In fact, on that very same page on panel 4, the bubble is lined at the gutter of the inset panel. So it shows that it could have been addressed, it just wasn't. It's a lot of other little things like that. But overall, the layouts are exceptional. I've got to compliment the layouts, and the art is above board most of the time. There's some weak panels, and there's a couple weak pages, but
I was going to say, go to page, I think 32. There's a really good layout that stood out to me. I think it was a bit of a montage, which is one of my favorite types of layouts, where you have a character who's, that one. So we have the character, and we get to see him kind of like larger than life. There's almost a symbolic side to the fact he's walking and doing things. And so you get kind of the benefit of a splash page, because lots of people in comics love to do kind of splash page images. But I always love it when a splash page can be utilized to also do storytelling. I think there's 2 or 3 panels in addition to what's going on here that show what's going on while he's essentially walking the beat here. So very nice layout. I completely agree with the layouts. It was one of the strengths that I noticed in regards to the art. So to hear that the creator was the one thumbnailing those is again a credit to him.
Yep. If you want to go
So
back to that page 31 too, I want to comment something on that because Twitless brought it up. So let's do the full analysis on it. You've got 3 inset panels over the top of the character who's walking towards the, and I'm just describing it because Red's a little slow here in pulling it up. There we go. So you've got the top 2 inset panels that the character overlaps on, and then to show progression of time, the last panel overlaps over the character. So if you scroll down, you'll see that the character overlaps over panels 1 and 2. The third panel overlaps over the character, showing you time progression. It's a really subtle artistic thing, but it's great to see understanding like this by the artist. And whether this was in the thumbnail, whether this was Mad Ruth, or whether this was the artist, either way, it's a really, really nice touch, and it was appreciated. This is done repeatedly throughout the book, an understanding of how to do your layering and where to do your layering. The gutter lines also complements. They use just enough white to separate them, but not too much that it becomes like eye breaking. So well done.
All right. Any other strengths that we want to hit on in the book? What about like the overall arc and the main protagonists? How well were those fleshed out for you? Let me go chase that cricket.
Yeah. Again, I'm not gonna lie. It was clunky. There were times where characters were their arcs were accelerating at, I would almost say, light speed. We have this brutal as nails neo samurai chick who's like, grimacing through most of the scenes that a lot of the scenes we see her in. And then suddenly she's crying, and then suddenly she's almost kissing this guy. And I think that happens in the space of like 2 or 3 panels.
Yeah,
And
that
like,
scene didn't make sense to me. Like, it's fine, like, if you do subversion of, oh, they're going to kiss, but why was she crying and why was she mad? It didn't make sense.
And there's a lot of that where the tone just doesn't seem right. And it's weird, and maybe you guys can tell me if you got this impression too. I never saw it where the tone was wrong page to page. It was always intra-page.
Yeah.
Like the page would start off in one place and kind of get lost in the middle and then reset the tone, and then the next page would be fine and it would continue on, and then like 2 pages later it would do the same thing, and the middle of the page would just be loose, and then it would go back to tight, and then the page turn happened and you were happy. Like the page turns worked, but the middle of the pages on a lot of those structures just was huge misses.
Yeah, I think it was just the beat, and it was a scene problem. Like every scene, not every scene, but a lot of scenes, that was the problem. The scene didn't quite work. You like knew what it was going for. You weren't confused, but it wasn't paced correctly.
That's
right, tonally it was off.
That goes back to what I was talking about with rhythm. Right?
Of course it goes back to something.
Yeah, so it definitely does. This book, to me, this book really establishes the difference between knowing certain aspects of structure, because I think certain key moments get hit, but the in-betweens there, the rhythms are so off at times that everything feels awkward. It feels like things are happening either too early or too late. Just the timing. I know it's weird to talk about comics and timing, but it is a thing to have have your characters have certain emotional moments and certain beats at certain times, and this book really seemed to struggle with those. And I think part of the issue may be the fact this book is trying to do so much with its characters and its world and its setting and the overall everything.
I think a lot of the times is like you just didn't convey the emotion correctly. Like the girl goes back to her father and she like misses him, and at one point she's like upset that she's betraying her, but you don't really get, logically what is happening, but you don't really get the sense that he's betraying what she wants. It's like,
right, it's a cold read. The emotion that is trying to be conveyed does not come across in the dialogue. Granted, the art should represent some of that, but the dialogue should complement the art, and in that regard, it doesn't. The dialogue's cold, almost pure analytical in how it's constructed. there's not a whole lot of what I would describe as emotive words that are in some of the statements, especially when the Neo Samurai chick is talking about her father. And you understand that relationship has grown cold, but once she goes and actually sees him, there's the implied warmth, but the tone of the verbiage hasn't changed.
Yeah, because you need the implied warmth, so then you get the sense of betrayal at the end when he's like betraying like her new friend, which is.
Now, interestingly enough, though, I did feel that in his dialogue there was a shift.
Yeah.
And the shift that you saw from how he talked earlier, and it makes sense in context, was almost robot-like. But then when he talks about, her fulfilling the shogunship that was her birthright, there is emotion there. And so we know that Mad Ruth can write emotion because it's there. You definitely get the sense that not only through the art, but through the words that he's upset and disappointed. But it doesn't convey through any other character. And I think that was one of the things that was stark throughout that the latter half of Act 2 and Act 3, when the Neo Samurai becomes the primary character. The villain actually seems to come across as more real than the protagonist. The protagonist almost floats through those scenes, still interacting and still doing things, but the action is much more of a driving concourse than the verbiage, which was a little strange given the first part of the book.
I do have to say, though, that I found because the final act of the book is basically a heist story, it was easier for me to latch on to, okay, this is what we're doing. The characters have very defined set goals. There's not nearly as much lore dumping going on. I did find the heist a bit stronger overall than some of the sections that came before. That could just be me.
the oral and junk and them getting into the facility. That worked out pretty well. That's what the pacing part of
Dexter's
was probably the best part.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I feel like the pacing worked out really
Dexter's part of Act 3 was excellent.
Yes.
I thought it was well paced, it was well structured. It was nice to see the, flying ferrets of doom actually utilized in a way that they set up fairly well with the telepathic communication and all their abilities and stuff. I liked that aspects of it, but I feel like that Neo Samurai subplot just was a miss.
What about world building? You guys want to touch on that a little bit?
There's a lot.
There's a lot.
Yeah. There's a lot of it. I do feel like it's too much. I don't think it ruined the book. I do think there's a trend for certain types of writers that we have reviewed before who, to me, I would say they kind of overcook their book a little bit with so much world building and lore that you almost need a guidebook to get through the book. And that's a problem if you end up in a spot like that, in my opinion. So this book is definitely doing that. I feel like with editing, you could trim a lot of that stuff, and the story would just work just fine without it. A bunch of it ends up being noise, and I think I was most irritated when it ended up being noise. I think the prologue scene, it was like every single character who was doing like a system check, every single character who was saying every piece of like telemetry, it had to be represented in a dialogue balloon. And I was like, I don't need to read all of this to get the gist of what you're trying to get across here. And that's where It's like you're definitely doing way too much if there's a whole bunch of material that adds nothing to what I'm reading and it's just noise.
Right. Now, when it comes to character and world building, Dexter's character, I thought, was handled I think my guess would be, and we'll find out when he comes on, but my guess would be Mad Ruth is a fan of Escape from New York, because how he sets up Dexter's character is very similar to how Snake Plissken is set up.
Oh, that makes sense.
Every time that he's introduced, they go, "Oh, the Butcher of Baltimore," and it's the same way. Like, I thought you were dead. It's that same exchange of everybody knows who he is, but nobody kind of knows what he looks like. He's become like almost a mythological figure, and they're shocked that he's in front of them. So that's handled well, because that adds to, when everybody's doing that, that implies that, holy shit, whatever this guy did was pretty major. And that works to establish the gravitas of the main character in a really nice way that doesn't come across as 100% forced. It's still crowbarred in there a little bit, but it's not brutal in its right in your faceness.
At least he wasn't in retirement, and they had to. We're tapping you out of retirement. Oh, I've been out of the game for 30. They did. They at
Right.
least he was at least still in the game. He was still being a bounty hunter. So when they tapped him to do more, it wasn't a big stretch. So.
Well, and the way the dialogue worked with that too, it shows that his avarice was what drew him into it. And even he says, "I'm going to regret this." It was he knew better than to do it, and yet he still does it. And that was a nice play. It seems tropey at the time, but sometimes tropes are there for a reason, and that's one of the reasons why it works.
I think the only problem I had with it is that I think he confused his tropes a bit, because he had the trope of I'm greedy, I'm doing this for money, but then he talks to Giles in like the next scene, and then Giles is like, I've left the path of violence and I don't want to do this, and Dexter says, well, I'm doing this because it might help me make up for my past, and it was like, we just established you're doing this for the money, so if there's something else there, it didn't quite, the wires didn't quite connect for me.
No, that's a good call. I can see that point, and I concede it. So that is a valid point. It was not the motivation was not consistent between where he takes the job and what he's describing to his friend. I'd argue that maybe that was meant as just a ploy to get Giles involved, but then he continues with that same concept later. Mm-hmm. So, and yes, Krang does make an appearance in this.
This I got a little irritated here. Again, we have more lore dump, more introduction of characters, and like it really felt like it didn't. And we even have like the logo Soltac. It was like, commercial break, and this gets resolved within like a page, and like everybody gets wiped out, and it was like, well, thank you for introducing me to this like final boss, and I feel like he's just been introduced, and then he dies like 2 pages later. I don't know.
Well, if you count pages, the Soltac breaks are issue breaks.
Okay.
So this is, I think, 3 issues that are kind of condensed down into, and Mad Ruth did a good job. His issue breaks work within the general context of his story. Okay. But yeah, it would have been nice in the collected work if we just kind of pulled that overlay out and let the
Full Metal
flow.
Alchemist.
Right. But no, as far as the world building goes too, you've got 2 locations on Earth, 3 locations on Earth. You've got 2 space locations. Then we go back to the Shogunite. Then we're on Mars. It jumps around enough, and every time you go to a new place, there's a huge expositionary dump to explain to you where you're at. And that probably could have been cleaned up a little bit better than how it was done. I'm not going to spend too much time criticizing it because it wasn't handled as nicely as I might like, but I think it was done okay. The issue is, and after you get to every location, the plot slows down. It doesn't hit beat for beat for beat as it should. It kind of, because you've got this expositionary dump, and then you've got to not just explain the location, but then explain why he's there. You get this up, like it's like a roller coaster, a there and back, man. You kind of go up the hill, and then you get action, and then we go up the hill, and each time it's a little bit more of a draw out to get that action setup going.
All right, guys. Did we want to move into final thoughts before we bring Mad Ruth on for any questions?
Yes.
Moonshine, let's start with you since you volunteered.
I mean, I found it rather interesting. I mean, it's we've discussed what the problems are. It's very rough scene to scene. Like the overall plot is fine. Maybe beat to beat is a little shaky, but yeah, the individual scenes do have problems, but the overall story is interesting. The art is rather amazing. I don't think it's quite as good as something like Renzo Rodriguez, but at times it's as good. I would say it's not quite as consistent, but it's pretty good. I do like the wackiness. I like the ferrets. I like just this brain sitting in a jar. This is the AI, but it's not really just pure tech AI, which would have been boring. It has a nice little reveal at the end, which is about the only thing we haven't talked about, so I won't. And it is 88 pages of story, so you do get quite a bit. And it is, I don't know if you can still get the square bound book, but that one is actually rather nice production quality on it. That's about it.
Yeah, I don't think we'll get to the review because we are supposed to hold back a bit on the spoilers. So go back this if you want to find out what the reveal is. And it's got Moonshine's approval. Twitless, could you take it up?
This is a complexing book for me to judge. It's a mixture of amateur and, in some cases, I think, definitely, if not professional, near professional, especially in regards to the art. It's frustrating and pleasing at the same time. Sometimes even over time, some of the things that I found to be very frustrating almost became like little calling cards, kind of like in, I don't know, a B movie where something that's a rough edge actually becomes something a little endearing. I think part of the problem is that there were moments where reading this was a slog, and that's never a good spot for a comic book to be in if you're like reading the pages and going, oh. So I would say that's probably one of the biggest ultimate problems with Soltac is the fact that there's so much, it's so dense. Every frame has got so much going on that it ends up, detracting from what I think the book could be. That being said, this book I think is very important for a couple of reasons. Partly because it's an amateur work and it manages to do things so well and also have those rough edges. It is a perfect example of an indie book in that respect. And that's what people are paying for. So that makes perfect sense. And then secondly, and it also bears emphasizing, this book has a lot of story in it. And we've read books before on this show with this, I think, exact panel before, where we felt like we got through a book that had taken a while to fund, because that's what it happens in our scene. We people pledge, we wait sometimes over a year to get the product, and then when we get it, it was like, wow, that was just like the opening scene of a movie. But that's it, only the opening scene. Ladies and gentlemen, Soltac gives you way more than the opening scene. The opening scene happens by page 4, and then so much happens afterwards. So Soltac, you definitely get your value for your money in terms of getting a bunch of story happening. So that's all in my thoughts there.
Aldous, would you like to wrap it up?
Yeah, and I think Twitless hit the nail on the head. When you're talking about indie books, this is an indie book that when you read it, it comes across as indie. It's not 100% refined, but the art is at a very high level. I cannot compliment the panel layouts more than I already have. What's done here, you've got allusions to stuff that was done in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, all in one book in general panel layouts. You've got a deep understanding of how to progress the panels and the art along with it. The art at times has a little bit of what I refer to as the slip sliding effect as you go through the book, which means that the art is a little bit more crisp on the first 20 pages than it is on the last 20 pages. And that's kind of just par for the course these days with artists. They tend to slip as they're getting close to finishing the book. That's fine. It's just the way things are. But overall, I was really impressed with this. This was probably one of the better books that I've received in the last calendar year from a pure indie creator. And for a first-time creator, very impressive. Recommendations for improvement. Make sure your editor is actually giving you really good feedback, because the editor's job, unless they're just doing a script edit, which if they're just doing a script edit needs to be defined in your credits that they just did a script edit. If they're doing a full book edit, they need to be looking at your pencils. They need to be looking at the inks as they come in and that panel progression. And then they always need to be cross-referencing it with your dialogue to make sure that you don't have continuity errors. Things like that knife wound should have been addressed as just, haha, I've got a cybernetic torso and it doesn't matter, or something like that. It just, you can make a passing comment and it goes away. So those things can definitely be addressed, but overall, very impressive.
All right. Excellent, guys. You don't want to hear a lot of me and my cricket friends, so let's bring on Mad Ruth and get the conversation going in that direction. Hey, Mad Ruth.
How's it going?
Very good.
Lot to take
How are
in.
you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. That's phenomenal. Yeah, I learned a lot. I learned a lot just listening. So that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, we try to keep the discussion pretty dense, and the reviewers they go in deep. But I guess like a little bit of background. Let's set some context. So, what inspired you to do Soltac?
So interesting enough, it goes back to 2005. When when they finished the first 6 Star Wars movies, George Lucas said he was done. He says there wasn't going to be anything else. So I realized, there's going to be a big hole in science fiction. This would be a great time for someone to do it. And along with that, I always inspired to take up writing when I retired. Like, you always have to have some sort of goal. So I was like, when I retire, I want to write science fiction novels. That was my plan on retirement. So I started writing this back around 2005 when Hurricane Katrina started. So those first 6 pages that you noticed, I actually wrote those in a novel form. I got about as far as those first 6 pages, and then it just went on the back burner. I ended up going and doing tours in Afghanistan and Bosnia, and I just never picked it up. So like those first 6 pages basically picked up dust for almost 15 years, which is probably why those first 6 pages seem so much different from the rest of the book. But in any case, when I was overseas, we've all done time in the military. You know, you've got downtime. You've got nothing else to do, but you've got your own thoughts to keep you company. So it all just started with me wondering where the human race would be in 6,000 years. If I was just a fly on the wall, where would humanity be? And then from there, I just imagined what would happen to the solar system, what happens with artificial technology, what happens with cracking the DNA and creating our own creatures, altering DNA and doing stuff like that. And from there, just in my spare time, I just started dreaming up this world. And obviously, like you said, you can't get bogged down in the lore. There has to be an actual story involving characters. And I mean, if you didn't know already, my main thing that I loved the most was Star Wars. I mean, I was literally born when that movie was in theaters. I would have been happy being a Star Wars fan the rest of my life if they didn't mess with it. And then, so basically, fast forward to 2018, and that horrible movie that came out, The Last Jedi. I mean, I was smoking cigarettes back then. I sat in my car, and I think I chain smoked about 3 cigarettes after that movie. I was so angry, so pissed off. Then I went home and I went on YouTube and I looked up Last Jedi Sucks, and that's actually how I found Comicsgate in 2018.
Wow.
Yeah. I couldn't sleep. I was so mad. So I just channeled that energy. I said, you know what? I've got the money. I want to do the writing. I've got this tiny little bit of script that I wrote 15 years ago. This is something I always want to do when I retire. Let's just do it. Let's just make this happen. There's people that could potentially like this. People could potentially buy it. I've been reading comic books for 30 years. I started studying, I did do required reading. I read How to Make Comics, How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. I read On Writing by Stephen King. So I did start doing research. I didn't just go, hey, let's go make a comic, and away we go. And I mean, 30 years of reading comics, I did learn, you use a long vertical panel if you want to do a big horizon shot. And if you just want to do like equipment check, like you see in my book, right? It's just a small little panel with something. So the different perspectives and stuff, I learned everything about the layouts. And I think we talked about it all, this reference, when I read Spider-Man by McFarlane, very much that's what inspired me. Those, not so much as writing, I think we established that, but the adventurousness of those pages, of how he just took a page and just looked at it as a piece of real estate, and what's the coolest thing I can do with this page. I very much wanted to recreate that. So I hope that answers that question. But
So are you thinking of doing a Star Wars type trilogy then out of the series?
So this is supposed to be 3 volumes altogether. I've already got it all mapped out right to the end. So the first one's Betrayal, the second one is Arise, and the third one is Destiny. Yeah, and it's basically, if I can get there, it's 3 volumes that all go together, and potentially throw that into a nice big fat book at the end. If I get that far, we'll see.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And you draw a lot of parallels, I guess, with A New Hope in this first one.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see all my influences. So you hit bang on Escape from New York. So if you took a blender and you took Planet of the Apes, you took Escape from New York, you took Star Wars, you took the Borg, you took everything from every science fiction genre. You took a bit of Aliens. I threw it all in a blender and I hit mix, right? So you'll see elements of all the greatest movies and all the things that I love the most, but without ripping those off, just creating something completely different, completely unique, and completely mine, essentially, out of all those elements. Because obviously I'm a science fiction geek. But
And what were the challenges of like getting this project put together? How did you find a team? How did you find the right artist, editor, and all those parts?
Yeah, so first off, I knew I was the weakest link in my team, definitely. So I'm the one funding the project, and I'm the weakest link in the team, right? So I went through about 500 artist portfolios, and I'm sure, as you know, it's really easy to hire someone to do a cover. It's really easy to hire someone to do a drawing, but when you turn around and ask somebody, hey, you want to do 92 pages of sequentials, is going to take you up the next 2 years of your life. Not so easy. So
Right.
I went through about a couple hundred artist portfolios, and then I narrowed it down to 20 or so. And it wasn't just the artist; it was watching what they were doing, watching their consistency of their portfolio, seeing how busy they were on other projects, because I didn't want to be a secondary throwaway project to anybody. In any case, I narrowed it down to Gonzalo. He became one of my top picks, and then I said, okay, I had Gonzalo do some of those full page splashes that you see were actually the first drawings that we did. So, for example, the cover of issue 1 there, that's the very first drawing Gonzalo ever did for me. That was what made me decide to keep going. That's literally the very first Soltac image ever happened, became the cover for issue 1. This one too was probably like the third or fourth image that I got Gonzalo to do before I said, okay, I think you've got what it takes for us to do this. And then between me and Gonzalo, like you said, I would do the layouts. So right now my thumbnails are getting a little lazier, but like that's an example. I want to see if I can get the glare. That's how I thumbnail. Like it looks like freaking Egyptian hieroglyphs, right? Like that's how I thumbnail the pages for Gonzalo. And then we sit there and decide how many panels we can do it. Between the two of us, we collaborate. And then I sit there, we go through all the story elements. And you're right, like the artwork will push the story, or the writing will push the story, and definitely it flips flops, which is why you're probably seeing it clunky in the middle, because it's exactly what it is I go from the top left to the top right. This is the complete story I got to do. Now what are we going to do in the space to make it happen? So that's probably exactly why you're seeing it. It's because that's where the collaboration between me and Gonzalo happens. And then I went through a couple colorists. I found colorists the hardest to work with. Pencilers are very easy to find. A lot of colorists, they just want to, they want to get in, get out, get their paycheck, right? So what happened when I hired one guy, it took him like weeks to turn in one page. It's okay, this isn't going to work for 92 pages. I hired Alonso. Alonso did 60 pages. And what eventually happened was Gonzalo just lost his mind, and he was tired of seeing his line art not colored the way he wanted it colored. So he finally just...
Sorry.
Yeah, well, that's just how it all went down. So he finally offered me a page rate on the colors that was so great that it was like, okay, I guess you're the colorist now. I'm not going to say no to that deal. So he basically gave me a bottom line price. I'll do pencils, inks, and colors for this price. And it's like, okay, you'll take over the book from here. And there you go. That's how that happened.
For creators out there looking for a colorist, just piss off your artist enough that they decide to color their own shit.
Just torture the penciler long enough. I have a question about because I remember going through the exact same thing for my book with the portfolio scenario, where I was pouring through hours and hours and hours. What was interesting is that where I ended up finding the best leads was surprised me. So, and this might be useful for our audience as well, because we always, want to get more people making comics. And so this might be just good to share. Not necessarily like, maybe all of your gold, but where do you get the best, what websites or platforms did you find you got the best leads? Like, because I know for myself that initially I was like, ArtStation, DeviantArt, and actually those were like some of the worst to try to find sequential art people. Like if you want pinup art, I think it's not so bad, but sequential art, it was absolutely terrible. I got nothing, and it was I think there was like a Reddit community that wasn't great either. But there's a couple of Facebook communities that were like banger, and they just had amazing portfolios, really great responsive people. And so that's where I go for my leads. There's a couple of really good Facebook groups. So I was just curious, like, where were you finding your best leads for collaborators?
That's exactly where I found Gonzalo, was a Facebook artists and writers for hire community. And exactly that, you'd go through, you'd see some of their work, then you actually go on their Facebook, you'd go through their timeline. I'm an ex-Rookie soldier, so I'm Snoopy by life. and not in a bad way or anything, but you know, I mean, I would go through and I would look at everything they've done over the years, the progression of their artwork, how much stuff they actually have, is there consistency, is there work consistency? But yeah, it was the Facebook groups, 100%. That's where I found.
Is it the connecting comic book writers and artists?
Yep.
Oh, that's the same one. Yeah, it's like the best one. It's crazy.
My other concern was Comicsgate, was the Comicsgate piece, right? So I had to do that a couple times. Just, by the way, I'm Comicsgate. Is that going to be a problem for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with Gonzalez, he's like, what is that? He's like, I'm a conservative. And he's like, oh, you're a conservative? He's like, you're the first conservative I've ever met. Turns out Gonzalo's very conservative as well. He's the kind of person who believes in throwing communists out of helicopters. So
hell yeah.
We got along just fine.
Free helicopter rides, one way only.
Like, okay, this is going to be a great working relationship. We're both on the same page. Let's do this.
Go.
Yeah. So, so I had to make sure. That's another thing too. Don't hire anyone that doesn't know you're doing comics books. If you're Comicsgate books, that's been a point of contention in the past where someone's found out and they've flipped their brick and don't use my stuff and rah. So I'd make sure that doesn't happen.
Really good advice.
Yeah. But yeah.
Well, Cricket Boy is gone. So so you've elaborated a little bit on where it came from. So what drove you to actually complete this and do it? What was it? Just the Comicsgate inspiration? Was it just your downtime from being retired now? Why was this story the one that you had to tell?
Yeah. So again, it's just life goals. You've always got to find something to do with your life. We've only got such a short time on this planet and we're all gone. Right. So knowing that my military career was coming to the end, I wasn't going to be going overseas anymore. I'm getting old, like I'm approaching 50. It's just crossing another thing off my bucket list. I told everyone I'm just going to be a writer and everyone, yeah, you're going to be a writer. And I mean, the entire culture changed, right? Like, think about it. Imagine if I came up with this book back in 2005, how much of a different community I would come into than coming in the middle of the culture wars and everyone's against each other over politics and ridiculousness and narcissism. But in any case, like I said, just between what they did to Star Wars, me being angry, me having the money, and me just seeing all those connecting roads coming in the right place at the right time, and Comicsgate being there, because it's the same thing. What good is it to make a comic book if nobody's going to buy it, or you can't sell it to anyone? That's completely useless and a waste of money. And I just said, you know what? This is the kind of community. It has the opportunity where if you can come out with a good product, you can deliver it, you can market it, you can gain people's trust, get yourself out there, you can make something happen. And it's just like I'm going to do this. And then, that desire, I don't know how else to.
I mean, is there hope to like restore some of that old legacy with new storytelling? Can we actually have a new Star Wars, do you think?
That's my goal. Like, that was my intent, is if you're not going to make the entertainment that I want, that escapism, that adventure, that piling, 20 pounds of action into a 10-pound bag and giving people exactly that excitement, the escapism that they're looking for, then I'll do it myself. If the mainstream don't want to do it, I'll do it myself. Right? What
was the magic that Star Wars captured that you're hoping to tame and also deliver in your project?
So for me, with all that, it's just a world that's greater than myself, a world that's sort of removed from where we are, something that's bigger than us, like the universe is bigger than us, galaxies bigger than us, causes that are bigger than us, the hero's journey, villains that are villains. Just being able to take everything that exists in this world, put it away, and be a part of an experience that's absolutely awesome, and it becomes a part of you as well. Like, Star Wars was very much a part of me. I mean, I'm not much of a geek, right? Like, people are Star Wars geek, but like, you know how we are, our hobbies. If you really, really love your hobbies and enjoy them, and yeah, like I said, just having that ripped away from me, it pissed me off. It pissed me off enough to do it myself. So.
That's how I will feel as soon as Twitless is kicked off this show and I can no longer give him shit.
Right.
Who was the character you identified with most in Star Wars?
Ooh, that's a good. I'm a big Sith fan, so if anything, it would be Anakin. It'd be Darth Vader. I see myself as Darth Vader.
Oh yeah. So did you put a little Darth Vader into your protagonist here?
No, I mean, you hit the nail on the hand. If Snake Plissken he's a Snake Plissken / Han Solo sort of blend, I guess is the best way to describe Dexter. But it's the same thing. Like, it's the Fantastic Four ratio. You got to have 3 dudes and 1 chick. So it's the same thing as building my team building, even though the orangutan isn't. You get the idea. I had to make sure out of 4 characters, there was a reason to justify the 3 men in the group, and there was a reason to justify Misha Atsu being there. A lot of time is wasted on character introduction. That's the hard part. You just want to introduce all those characters, but you don't want to do the whole, we've assembled 20 of you in this room because we're going to
Right.
become team blah blah. Right now, like I wanted a natural flow, so whoever's reading this could identify with the characters or at least see their existence or why they're there. But at the same time, you're right. I've got 88 pages to do this. That's another thing too. I laid out like 80 pages, and then I had a couple left over, and then I started inserting blank pages to make like that fight scene where Dexter's fighting Castor. I threw an extra page or 2 in there, and further out, I said, "Oh, I can throw an extra page in there." The one where he goes to Washington and he digs, and he pulls them out of the ground. That page almost never even made it in. We almost would have omitted that and skipped over it. I don't know if that'd be good or not, but I was like, I've got an extra page. I'll throw that in there. So I did that after I'd mapped it out. And you're right, trying to cram 20 pounds of stuff into a 10-pound bag. But I did it because I was like, if this is the only book I ever end up making and I never make a book again, at least it's complete, you know?
Right.
Well, as far
I
as,
can understand that.
What you included, like, what do you view as indispensable in the book, and what do you view as kind of outside and superfluous?
Right. So I very much saw the solar system as a sandbox, and I thought it was very important that if the lore is contained in the sandbox, in this 88 pages, I wanted to visit all 4 corners of it. I wanted to lay out, this is the sandbox. This is what's happening here, here, and here, and here. Here is our 4 characters. Here is all our main elements that are happening in the sandbox. This is the situation. You know what I mean? Just basically laying it out for everybody while telling a story at the same time in 88 pages. And again, I was just trying to give as much value as possible to the reader. So.
What about characterization? Like, which points did you feel like you had to tell about your characters to make sure that the audience would identify with them?
Ooh, like story elements. So yeah, see, that's tricky to go through. So like, I wanted everyone to know that like it's a cutthroat world. Again, spending time in the first world, life has very little value here. You know, people are dying all the time. People are very rough to each other. All this, you know, being all sensitive and all that stuff, that's gone. There's none of that sensitivity is going on in this universe. So making dark characters, but at the same time, giving them a just reason for existing, right? Everyone's not just crook and, you know, I mean, trying to steal from each other, get advantage of each other, murder each other. But, you know, in their hearts, genuinely, they have a greater purpose, and they come together as a team for a greater purpose and so forth. And it gives us justification why we're following these particular 4 characters instead of just some other random characters in Soltac, right? There's a reason why we are following these 4, because they're about to hit a pinnacle moment in humanity. I don't know if that answered, but I get what you're saying. You want individual character reasons, but I'm seeing them as a team all throughout. It's like I've got to have the Fantastic 4 ratio, and I got to justify why all these team members are coming together. So,
what did you guys think, Twitless, in all this? How did that come across on the page?
Twitless, you want to go first?
No.
Okay. So I think it generally came across. I think you spend a little bit of time developing the orangutan character, Giles, and you do a really nice job, like I said, of developing Dexter. The Neo Samurai chick, it feels really shoehorned in, and then the 4th, which is her sidekick, like, dude, what happened? Like, he's just there. There's a scene, and let me pull up the book. It's early in the book where they're at the station. And you almost get the impression that he's somebody else. Like, he's not even associated with her because of the way that he's sitting at the bar. It took like the next page before I went, oh, he's with her.
Right.
It was just he's more of a tag along. There's not a whole lot of dialogue that's like, oh, he's with her. Okay.
Right. So part of the reason for that is so it'd be very lonely in a spaceship if somebody was just in a spaceship by themselves. Like, who would they be talking to? So that ties into there has to be someone there, but at the same time, it's not going to be her love interest because that's not where I want to go. So I know it's only in the half issue and it's not alluded to at all in the story, but he's basically a guard that's been assigned to basically watch her back by the shogun, handpicked, decided you're going to be a guard to keep my daughter alive, and that's the only assistance I'm going to basically give her, essentially. So he's just been assigned to watch her back, and there really isn't much to it.
I know that because I got the
Right.
half issue,
Right.
but in the context of the story, I have to read. You're putting me in a position where I have to read the half issue as the reader, which if I don't get the half, and let's talk about the half issue real quick.
Yeah.
So the half issue only went to backers on your original Indiegogo account,
Yes.
Indiegogo campaign, and whatever you had overprints for the first few backers on Fund My Comic.
Right.
So you've got a limited release there that gives you back. I mean, do you see like you've got a secret key that's semi-important because you're the one that said it, not me. You've got 4 main characters, and one of your main characters you don't explain why they're there.
Yeah.
So it's a resonance thing that you don't do that. Now, you did say something of you didn't want that moment where you're probably wondering why we all called you 4 in here. Two movies that do this really well, that do it in non-movie fashions, are The Magnificent Seven and The Dirty Dozen, on how you formulate your group together. That being said, we've criticized a couple of other books for feeling very script-like you're writing a movie script. Here, I have to have the opposite. This is not written like a movie script. This comes across, like I said, as a comic. And you understand the panel layouts. You understand the progression, top left to bottom right. You have a couple of moments with, like I said, location changes that you really should have maybe broken that out a little bit better. And there's a couple of page turns that don't really work, but that's going to be in general across most books. Just work on those things. But I think you showed a lot here, man. So you did a good job.
So much. Appreciate it.
Twitless, your turn.
Yeah, Twitless, say something nice.
It's very pretty. No, I'm kidding. No, there's a moment that we didn't touch on that I found it to be puzzling because it was so good and yet certain things were so clunky. And I think it's on page 26 or 27. And in this scene, you're able to show, and again, it's clearly demonstrated to me that you know what you're doing, because Giles is he's been assigned to basically do I think store the ferrets, and he's clearly not happy with it. And then you have this wonderful panel where he just there's no dialogue, but he looks at the airlock.
Yep.
And he just looks at it, and then we cut to another scene, and I'm like, that is masterful storytelling right there. Right. It's a little suspense, and we don't know what happened and what happens until later when there's a payoff for actually this is what he did in that scenario. I won't spoil.
Yep.
But that is masterful storytelling, and so I was like, okay, this guy clearly knows what he's doing. But in dialogue with the characters, I brought up the term rhythm before, but it felt really awkward where characters would say too much to each other. I think there's a moment where it's after they investigate the colony and they're zooming off into space, and one character says, "Thanks, friend," and then he starts telling a joke, and then he tells the entirety of the joke, and it's all happening from one balloon to the next balloon. It's all happening at once. And I'm going, where? So I guess my question is what I'm more interested in, like the behind the scenes of what's leading up to some of those moments. Cause like I said, you're demonstrating mastery of the art form in those places. But in dialogue, it seems like we're getting some just clunky. It's just not, there's certain things where the rhythms are not quite flowing the way they should. So I'm just curious, like what is your process when you're putting together dialogue, I guess, and maybe tease that out a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm really bad for putting way too many panels. So in the beginning of this thing, I had like 8 panel pages, 10 panel pages. I was trying to do a bit of a like a Frank Miller type thing, like
Mhm.
overloading these pages with way too many panels. And I'm sure you're grateful for it, but Gonzalo told me there's no way in hell I'm putting that many panels in. So
Yeah.
we would get in these things where I would show him like an 8 panel layout, and he's like, I can do it in 4. I'm like, you can't do that in 4. I need 8. So he would do it out, and again, I'd go top corner down, go through the dialogue, and I'd be like, yeah, okay, that does achieve from top corner to left corner, and you picked it up yourself. And then it's squeezing in that middle piece as a compromise. And like you said, that's kind of where I guess it's weak between me and Gonzalo. Maybe I got to pay more attention that there's panels that I need to put my foot down and say, no, those panels need to be in there. And maybe that would polish that a little better. Or maybe if me and Gonzalo just spent a little bit more time back and forth, trying to get it right.
I think you just need to spend some more time talking with your artist and working through it. I think and then the other thing is involve your editor. If you involve your editor in some of that, you can clean up a lot of this dialogue and make it work, even after the fact.
Yeah. No, for sure. And that did happen a few times. Like, I know you're only seeing the finished product. You're not seeing what ended up in the cutting room floor. In my opinion, what ended up on the cutting room floor is absolutely embarrassing. Like, to Red Valkyrie's credit, they cut about 30% of the dialogue that I had in there. So imagine another 30% of dialogue thrown in there on top of everything that's already in there.
Gosh, it'd be Bendis level.
So they did do a lot of cuts. And they did do a lot of suggestions with pages. It was just it became a matter of cost effective to go back and make those changes to artwork that was already complete. So
I get it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not trying to come to be too negative there. Like I said, to me, it was the surprising thing is, and the reason why I pressed you on a little further is that typically you would see someone go to the polls in the sense that if they don't understand the art form, we'd see much more roughness. And to me, I was like, well, we have all these instances where, you like I said, very clearly know what you're doing. And you can definitely tell that there's a level of craft and going on when that person can wield subtlety. And so when I saw that scene with him looking at the airlock, I'm like, he knows how to work subtlety in here. I definitely know that you've got some talent there.
Thank you very much. Yeah, this is my first time writing anything, pretty much, right? So, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's how it is still for a lot of people in this space. Like, there are a lot of first-time creators, and I think the backers recognize that, they support that, and you put an honest effort out there. You put a unique idea and a very unique product. People are going to come back, and they're going to want to see how far you go. Definitely.
Yeah. I only want to do 3 trades. That's my goal, right? Like, I have your goals. It's not going to go volume 3 and volume 4 and volume 5. I'm just praying I can get to volume 3. We'll see.
Well, I definitely want to say that, don't stop your dreams at volume 3. Obviously, like, do volume 3 and make it complete. But I definitely, one thing that I hope that our reviews don't do is make people go, do what I've seen like Martina Markota do, which is I'm making one comic and then like, to hell with this. I'll never touch this entire thing ever again.
Whoa, that might be a good thing. Let's slow the roll there just a little bit.
I just want to point out that I want more people creating comics than people getting in, trying it and saying, this is like the worst torture I've ever done. I hate it and never want to do it again.
No, for sure. Everybody should try their hand at it. But look, man, I mean, it's just like anything else. Everybody plays for the JV team, but when you want to get on the varsity, we're going to have cuts. And, there needs to be some cuts. And Martina not making another book is probably a net positive going forward. So, in this case, yeah, man, take the criticism and understand that it's just critiques. We're not being super negative on a book. If Twitless and I wanted to really rip a book apart, we could fucking do that with even Eisner Award-winning books from 15 years ago or 20 years ago when Eisner's actually fucking mattered. But, it's all about just, we're trying to help you and give you the feedback of 2 people. We're coming from different perspectives. I love comics. Twitless is an academic. So,
no, it's brilliant feedback. Yeah, I mean, I wish I'd take notes. I'm definitely going to watch this again and start take notes because a lot of awesome feedback. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Because you have clearly you have talent. After you're done with Soltac, we're interested to see what you do afterwards. I guess that's that's the sentiment I was trying to communicate.
Yeah,
Right, and I would add to that and say that it'd be interesting to see what you could do with something that is fresh, that's not something that you've been ruminating on for a decade.
Mm,
Because this story's been bouncing around your head for 10, 15
yeah,
years.
yeah,
So what can you do with the story that you just came up with? That from the point of
mhm,
view of reading what you've got here, I'd be interested to see what can you do kind of not off the cuff, because obviously you're going to work on it and refine it.
yeah.
Well, what can you do in a shorter period of time? And then how fast can you do that with new ideas and process them? That would be something that I'd be looking forward to on your next outside of the Soltac universe release.
I wouldn't even know myself because, like you said, I've had a long time to incubate this. So I hear you. We'll see.
It sounded also like you wanted to tell a hero's journey story, kind of
Yeah.
well, you said Anakin, but I was thinking Luke, but I guess within that vein of like, having a main protagonist go through that process. But then you're telling a team-based story here. Is that right? Like you took that shift?
Yes. So Dexter will continue to evolve. He'll keep encountering things that just make him more and more influential character. And I don't want to spoil anything, but Dexter's definitely the main character. But yeah, it's much like Darth Vader. It goes from just being a boy to being a Jedi to becoming the right hand man of the Emperor, so to speak. So. Yeah.
Do you want to give us any teasers on what to expect for volumes 2 and 3?
Well, it's interesting enough. I don't know if you want to bring up Fund My Comic again, but there's 5
Sure.
pages of line art for Arise that are on there, 4 or 5, and there's some pretty cool pages that already me and Gonzalo are designing. So you actually got a 4-page preview of Arise on Fund My Comic. So if people do like the trade, I got Luke to bring that particular 32-page floppy. It's $12 plus 8 for shipping. I got it down to $20. And again, that was more of an apology again for I initially wanted to fulfill the campaign, but it ended up being fulfilled from the States. So I said, let's do this book as bare bones, as cheap as possible for anyone who wants to read the next 32 pages. So, but if you
And
scroll, yep. Sorry.
I was going to say that's something we did bring up in the pre-show with you on IGG, which I back you on Indiegogo. I got the 2-book tier. It was $20 shipping. Currently, it's $15 shipping. You did include a bunch of trading cards for everybody on IGG, and like we said already, that half issue that the only the first few backers on Fund My Comic got. But moving forward, are you going to ever be going back to IGG? I mean, have you learned your lesson basically of offering things differently on different platforms?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, you always got to go up. You can't go down. Yeah, you'll piss off backers. And I did apologize in a couple updates. That was not done intentionally. It literally just happened because Luke Stone and Arrow Comics took it over. I wasn't gonna. Hey, I'm gonna charge $5 more for the buck on Fund My Comic just so I can match what I did on IGG. Then I'd just be pocketing an extra $5 from the backers, and that's not really fair either. So it's like, where's that compromise? How do I pay back my IGG backers for paying an extra $5? At the same time, how do I not steal $5 from people? Which is why I just said those 5 trading cards are compensation. That 5 trading cards on top of the half issue are compensation. Everyone who backed it on IGG. You have to come up with a compromise, right? So
Cool. No, I think people appreciate that you recognize it. So
yeah, I did, and it wasn't a couple updates. I would never do that on purpose to try to take $5 from people if I didn't need to. So. These are still from the book, which was very important too, and a lot of people love this, was that I put full colored pages with writing. Because so many people skip out on the writing and you don't actually know what kind of writing this person can bring to the table. I think it was Pete Cimetti who mentioned it. There were a couple of people that said that that's what they wanted to see on the campaign, so I did that. But if you scroll down, you'll actually get to Arise.
I love this image here with the skull brain.
Yeah. I wish
fiction.
I wish I had my pages here to show you what I draw compared to what Gonzalo. That's actually pretty close to my drawing, my storyboard. It was very similar.
I like the character designs here. I don't know if you guys had a chance to hit on that, but I think they're pretty cool, actually. So
yeah, I spent about 8 months developing the actual character designs. So here you go. Here's how the book continues. So you remember page 1 from Betrayal? Do you notice the similarities between page 1 of Arise? And Misha Atsu waking up. Now it's Giles' turn, right? So a lot of continuity.
Following patterns. So you're going to be telling the similar story? Is it origin in nature?
This is a flashback right now. So yeah, Giles is just waking up. So it's the moment that drove Giles and Dexter apart, the mission that went wrong, that they were never going to work together again. So the first few pages is a flashback. If you keep scrolling, it's the mission that ended their friendship. So,
Gotcha.
but now now you know who they are.
that-
Now I don't have to introduce them. Sorry.
Well, your that panel right there that he's got pulled up, that's almost right out of the deleted sequence of Escape from New York too, man. You've got that he's carrying the briefcase. It's just you're layering it nicely with the cultural reference. So I dig that. Just as one last thing, man, my favorite page of this entire book is page 6. That is just phenomenal, where the orbital station explodes as the AI attack, and you zoom in on his face in 3 consecutive panels that are slightly angled.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was such a great touch, and I didn't even think about it on Friday, but that's a McFarlane throwback.
Yeah.
So
it is.
Very well done, man.
Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, so you see, like, they're all getting together and stashing their weapons, and then they go into this bar of thieves, basically. And so you see the guys that are on the cover so that there's even a story behind how that line art cover came to be the covers, because an artist stiffed me that I paid half of a commission for a cover, never delivered. So rather than eat the loss, I got Gonzalo to put the line art out for what could potentially be issue 4 if we ever got that far, and that became the cover for the line art version. That's how I sort of made up for somebody stiffing me for $100. So, yeah.
Is that pretty common when you're contracting out to artists? Sometimes those deals just go sour.
Yeah, and you can't throw a fit about it. Like, that's why you pay people half up, half eater. You can either go on Twitter and scream and throw a fit and throw their name in the mud and make yourself look like shit at the same time, or you just, you know what, I asked you to deliver, you didn't meet the deadline. I'm parting ways. Have a good day. You get to keep $100 of my money. Yay for you, right?
I will say that if you're going to get into comic creating and you're going to be finding artists to work with or colorists, whatever team, you do have to get used to the process of trying people out and it not working out and having these. It's all part of the process, and
That's right.
you can't let it get you down too much, because then you're never going to get through it. And one piece of advice that I would give to anyone in chat considering doing this is that comics is often a collaborative process. And so even though comics tends to attract antisocial people, your ability to leverage social skills is often what's going to help you get through the end. So you can't just be like, I'm just going to be the tortured, genius who can't work with anybody. You really need to learn how to work with other people.
Yeah, as the guy with the checkbook, I could have been a real prick and, made my artist change this and change that and change this, make the colors change that. You're not going to encourage anybody to work with you that way. They're going to do the bare minimum effort they have to do to get as far away from you as possible. And I wanted to encourage everyone in my project to invest in it and be excited in it. And Gonzalo is very much mine and Gonzalo's and Kurt's. It's all of our book. It's a collaborative effort. We all put something into it. It's just not me standing there issuing out checks and dictating to people what must be done. Yeah, that magic doesn't come together that way, for sure. Nobody wants to work for a tyrant, And
if you are going to work for a tyrant, you have to be handing out like the money. You have to make the money so worth it that they can hold their nose. And
they better know what they're doing. Like I said, I felt like I was the weakest link on the team, even though I was paying for it. I'm the most amateurist of them all, right? First time writer. Everyone else has had experience. Kurt Hathaway's been a letterer for 30 years. Gonzalo already had a book and some stuff under his belt. You get the idea, right? Shane's probably flatted, who knows how many pages, 500, 600 pages in her life. That's all she does is flats pages, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I don't know.
Sorry, go ahead.
I don't know if you like the line art you're seeing, but there's still a couple more pages. There's another page down there I want to show you, which is really cool when you get down to it. That one there. So this is one where I gave Gonzalo a bit of freedom, and that's what he wanted to do with it. It was a big screaming Dexter and a big screaming Giles. And I was like, yeah, it looks really cool, man. Like, it's just basically Giles and Dexter beating the shit out of a bunch of punks. And it's like, yeah, man, like, let's just go to town. So
I was going to ask, you're building this network also from Canada, and it sounds like a lot of the people you work with are in other countries.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Yeah, so Gonzalo's in Chile, hence the throwing communists from helicopters reference. Alonso's in Peru, Shay's in the Philippines, and then obviously Kurt and Red Valkyrie in the United States. So yeah, my book ping pongs around the planet, goes all the way around.
Do you have any language barrier issues at all? Because sometimes when you're working with an international team, that sometimes causes a little.
No, because everyone knows their job at the end of the day. So like that's why you do a Bible first. That's why I did the half issue first. So there was no black and white on what the characters looked like or what the character colors were. So it was worth it to spend the 6 months. So whenever Mishatsu came up, it's not a matter of me giving my artist or giving my colorist direction. I just go, sorry, I don't mean to hold up the show. I just go, that's Mishatsu. That's what she looks like. That's how she's colored. That's what her face looks like. That's what her swords look like. You know what I mean? So there's no language barrier there. This is what you're drawing.
Sure.
Right. So yeah, that definitely helped, was setting up that Bible and giving a copy of it to everyone on my team so that it was crystal clear what the ships and the characters look like, to keep that consistency.
No, that's valuable. I think again,
Yep.
it's good material for interested people.
Now, did any of the issues you had in Canada, I don't know if you touched on that yet, with the comic convention disinviting you once they found out you were affiliated with CG, how did that impact your team, and did that reflect on any of them and their work, whether or not they wanted to continue?
No, it didn't affect them at all, because I was going to do the book regardless. So even if I didn't sell a copy, but it did affect me fulfilling from Canada, because my intent was to print it here, to get into comic book stores here, to go to conventions, and to sell it locally in addition to selling it through crowdfunding, right? I figured I could have probably had just as much revenue locally as I could online, but that revenue source been cut from me, and I'm about to go through another summer of adventure. I'm about to go to a bunch of, I don't want to get into too many details or somebody get ahead of me, but I'm going to be going to some of the cities, like markets that they have going on and stuff. It's gonna be interesting if I run into those characters again. Like, I can't wait. They pour a beverage on my table or something. Let's go. It's gonna be fun. But but no, it took away half of the market that I thought I was gonna have, which is why Luke stepped in and said, well, if you're gonna spend all this money on printing and try to fulfill, why don't you just move it down to the States? I could print it for a third of your print costs, and then we can distribute it that way. And I was like, yeah, let's do that. And the money he saved me again went back into the book I'm creating now. So I actually saved money by doing that.
And did your international collaborators, did they know about any of that, or?
Gonzalo did, but no, none of the other ones. I don't think they care. It's not interested. They're happy to get the book when it's done. You know, that's the one thing about, like, so with this crowdfunding space, I definitely notice it's a lot better when everyone on the team is also working to promote this thing. So like, you look at like Frog G's book, I can't think of any others, like my brain's starting to go, but where the colorist is promoting it, the pencil and art's promoting it, the writer's promoting it, they're all reaching out on different channels. You know what I mean? They're getting 3 times the exposure. It's a lot better than what I'm going through. I'm literally the only one promoting this book. You know, I have a whole bunch of talent for hire. Sorry, that's not true. Red Valkyrie also has helped me promote, but for the most part, you know what I mean? Like, I have a bunch of talent for hire that aren't going out of their way to promote the book. And I definitely say in this community, that's one of the big positives about hiring from within the community, is you could tap in that potential of getting into their friends network, getting onto their shows, and them also doubling up on the promotion. So it's not just on one person's shoulder. So.
Yeah, I mean, and how did you find the promotional circuit now that you're working it?
Well, I mean, I've been in Comicsgate for 2018. And I think that was the biggest payoff, is that I wasn't just this new. So everyone's tired of these new people, because this is what they do, right? Brand new person comes in, brand new person says, Comicsgate is the greatest. You guys rock. Doesn't back anyone's book, puts out their own book. Nobody knows who this person is. Have you seen this person before? Never seen this person before. Have they backed anything? Don't know. No one backs their book. Then their book does subpar. Then they, throw everything in the air, say, F you, everybody, your community sucks, and they run away. How many times have we seen that happen over and over? It's like telling these people, you can't just walk in here to throw up a flag, say you're part of the team, but not contribute, not get on the shows, not get in the chat, not back books. So I know I'm going blah, 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 but at least from 2018 to 2020, I was active in the community for 2 years before I even started crowdfunding this. So when I did come out, everyone's like, oh, okay, we know that guy, and that helped me huge. Absolutely,
Mm.
not being a stranger.
Mhm. Yeah, networking seems to be the strongest way. Like just making the right connections, meeting the right people.
And always being friendly, always being grateful. If any, like what you're doing, you're all of you are sacrificing your time to talk to me. There's two things you can give to people: your time and your money. Always be grateful to everyone who's willing to give you either of those things. Be appreciative and never take it for granted. That's probably
Well,
the biggest piece of advice.
I'm going to correct you there on one thing. There's only
Okay.
one thing, and it's time, because time is money. So
Yes, true.
I think there's actually, something that supersedes all of that, which is giving Amit Reina a free review copy.
do not ever give Ahmed
No.
a free anything,
You'll
unless
wake up-
it is a one-way helicopter ride.
Mm.
Those are always, anybody that's begging for free shit is always welcome to a one-way helicopter ride.
Right.
Straight to the bottom of the ocean. Yeah, I've been taking the opposite approach from the one you're taking, Matt Ruth. I try to be a jerk to as many people as possible and piss everybody off and still expect them to help me. So I'll let you know how it goes, though.
Good luck. Yeah, good luck with that. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are you thinking of in terms of people you might want to work with that you've met in the community and like guys you think would make really interesting collaborators?
Well, I mean, I can go through the whole list. I mean, that's the thing. Like, who do you take off project, right? Like, so I tried to get a cover from Dan Fraga. I don't know if you knew about that story, but I don't want to get too much into it. Early on, I asked him to do a cover for me when he first got into Comicsgate, and he was excited for it. Here's another tip: if you've got a king who's like, yeah, man, I'll do a cover for you, don't sit on it for 2 years. So, like I said, 2018, I probably could have gotten to throw it out on a cover for me of Dexter, but I sat on it. And then I approach him, 2021, hey, man, no, I'm way too busy. There's no way I could stop and pause and do a cover for you. So he did say next book, hit him up again. So very much, I mean, you've seen the Cyberfrog, the Black Flag. I very much wanted Dan because I am an Image fan. Like I was trying to buy every single Image comic that existed from like 1992 to about 1994, and then I gave up. It just became too many, and I started. But I was literally trying to buy every book that had an Image on it because I was like, yeah, these are the guys. But yeah, eventually.
Do you still want every Image book that was published in that range? Because
No,
we can
that's right.
talk.
Right? No.
I've got multiple copies. I'd be happy to.
All for a $5.
I mean, there's so many talented
Not
artists.
far off.
Yeah.
I think the biggest issue for me would be hiring someone to basically do the work that Gonzalo's doing, but at a higher page rate, because like I don't want to give away Gonzalo's page rate, but it's really good. So, I don't think I could find an artist out there willing to do what Gonzalo's doing. So, because Gonzalo's just like me, he wants to keep going. Both of us don't want to stop.
Well, the goal there should be, let him earn enough so that he can get his family out of Chile, because it's going south fast. So
he's very much a family man. Like my payments go into his father's bank account, and he loves it that like I give him a page and he disappears for a week, and he goes out to his parents' farm and he works on the page and he gets back up line and boop. So yeah, very much so. Very much appreciates that salary, like the money I'm paying him.
So what are you thinking of crowdfunding Soltac 2? Is that in the plans?
Yeah, so right now I'm crowdfunding Arise, and as per the campaign, I think I'll have Arise out no later than March 2024. I'm very comfortable that I've given myself enough breathing room. I will have it in backers' hands by March 2024. I'm working on a show right now. I've been trying to put my own show together for a year. Like, everyone's like, grab an oar. Even though we've got 150 creators that are supposed to do 3 hours a day worth of content, which would be 450 hours worth of daily content, which nobody has time to watch. But
you'd be better off lubing an oar rather than grabbing it.
Oh, gosh.
Well, Red made a funny.
Yeah.
So I spent a few months trying to work with a couple artists. We just didn't jive. The chemistry wasn't there. So at 4 or 5 months, I've been trying to put a show together. Didn't work, fall apart. I've now got, Jason Sandberg, Chris Faction, and B.A. Turner. The four of us have been backstaging, trying to put that together, an hour-long show that we want to do. That'll basically be a weekly recap of us going through the three main topics of the week, sliding it into a primetime hour, also putting titles in there that generate, if you're picking the headline of the week and you're building that into your title, random people potentially on YouTube, we're trying to build up exterior audience and bring in new blood. That's the goal of it. A show that's more like a late night show content, like Johnny Carlson type, like, you get what I'm saying? So that's my next contribution that, and that's going to happen in the next month or so. Jason's working on the trailer, and then we'll see if that hour-long show picks up on Fridays. I need my own audience. Like, it's fine to go around and beg and borrow people. Hey, can I come on your show? Can I come on your show? But it's like your neighbor coming to you and asking for sugar, right? So the first time, hey, you meet your neighbor and they want sugar. Great. Then they come and then they want some coffee. And then they come and then they want $5. And then you know what? You just stop answering the door when they knock, right? So, so that's my next piece, is starting a YouTube show, taking a year with it after this is done in March 2024. I need to build my own audience before I try to launch volume 2, because I've got funding gateways I got to hit. I'm really appreciative. I earned $6,500. Like, that's incredible for a first-time artist. But basically, for me, each of these floppies costs $6,000 US. So if you look at 3 of them and add 3 of these together, that's not how much money I raised, right? Not even close, right? So
Yeah.
So I think you get the idea what I'm trying to do next. So
yeah. Also, like, carving out a niche seems to work really well. Jeremy did a great job with that. All this, maybe you could speak to that a little bit, where he picked up some of the shows that he talks about and blew up his subscriber count on it.
Yeah, he's doing nothing different than what I'm doing. It's find something that you love. What I love happens to be old, and most of the people that appreciate it are dead. So I don't have the rapid growth that Jeremy does. Jeremy's got his finger on the pulse of the entertainment, aspect, and so is finding shows that A, he's passionate about, B, that are written well and well assembled, and it's not complaining. He's not venting. He's praising. He's talking about that which he loves. That which you love will always draw a larger audience that's receptive to what you have to say than if you're constantly shitting on things. Because if you're constantly shitting on things and then you go, well, hey, here's what I have that's great, you've just cultivated an audience that's used to shitting on things. So they will shit all over what you just produced. If you're positive and show things like, hey, this is what I like, and this is what I like, and this is what I like, people then will cross associate you with those things. So when you come out with something, they're going to go, well, he likes all those things that I like. I'm going to probably like this, and they'll give you a shot. The risk is it has to be up to standard, because if it's not, they're going to walk away from you on issue 2. So, but yeah, always talk about something positive, whatever you're passionate about. If you're passionate about comics, if you're passionate about Star Wars, just talk about that. It's not hard. There's an eternity, massive amounts of content out there, and just do a good job. Make sure it's well produced. Have a great trailer or an introduction, and you're good to go. And don't have crickets in the background.
Damn it! I knew I was doing something wrong.
That's exactly what it is. Well,
yeah. And actually, the other good thing is, other than like a comics art or comic creation community here, you also have like a YouTube content community. You can get people who, a lot of these streams, they're ensembles, so you can get people to stream with you. You can get people who are good at doing videos and good at doing thumbs and things like that. So all of those resources are also available. You just have to find the right people.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would love to draw more from inside the community. I just don't know where to start. Definitely trailers, but like I said, now that I'm working with Jason, he does trailers too. So
cool.
No, Jason's good people, man. And so is B.A. Turner. I don't know the other gentleman that you're working with off the cuff, but both those guys are good people. So it sounds like you got something good going, man.
Yeah, hopefully. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to giving back and offering a platform other creators can come on as well. Because I mean, you have to pay it forward. You can't just be a taker. I understand that. So,
what day are you planning on doing your show? Hopefully, it's Sundays at 10:30.
No, we're aiming for.
It's an open time slot, so not a lot of competition.
We're aiming for Friday evenings, right in the middle of a couple shows. So.
Oh, fun! What time specifically? Out of curiosity.
The time slot. It won't be this late. It won't be over your show. If that's what you're hinting, you're at 11. You're at 11 EST. Yeah, no. It won't be that late. I think we were actually supposed to tie it up. So who's Odin's? Sorry, James. Is James working with Odin
Dasko?
on Kill Them? Yeah. I think James wants to put a middle show. So basically, they want our show, mine, Jason Sandberg's. Then James wants an hour, and then that should lead to your 11 o'clock show. So we're looking at
Oh,
sort of
great. Well, we
conquering
need
Friday.
to talk then.
Yeah,
If we do that, then we should try to
Lead
get
into
general
each other.
themes going.
Right.
Yeah,
Get my
for
audience
sure.
to go to James's show, and then James will get his audience to go over to your show. That's
absolutely.
So we're even
Man,
talking about things without talking to you about it. So
look at that. That's amazing. Nobody really wants to talk to me though, other than Twitless, who blows up my DMs weekly. So
no, but that was legitimately the plan. I didn't just make that up on the spot. So
What are you talking about? You blew up my DMs with freaking wild palms of all things.
you liked every minute of it.
Well, great. It's wonderful to see so much love on the panel. So lots of things to look forward to. Also from you, Matt, Ruth. Sounds like you got a lot of aspirations here.
No, I love the community. The community's given me so much. I mean, I've got so much incredible entertainment now, where I didn't have it for a couple of years. I'd given up on entertainment. I mean, this community is amazing. It's incredible. You just got to tap into it and become a part of it. And thank you so very much for having me on. Thank you so much for giving me your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you absolutely for.
Thank you for sharing your work with us. And thank
Absolutely.
you for
And as
offering
always,
it up
man. For sure. And thank you so much for defending those dangerous Canadian shores for your career.
Right.
It's
when are you guys just going to
all
come
of us
take
down here in the States really appreciate it.
So eventually you're just going to come take us. You know that, right? Like Canada's not going to exist.
We're well aware. Are you?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, just come do it already.
Only
please,
the
help us.
Mounties stand in our way.
Right. Oh.
And the moose.
The killer seals.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't worry, we're on our way. You know,
Cool.
We're loading up the truck.
Liberate us.
You can actually keep Toronto though. We really don't want that.
I'm not nowhere near
and Vancouver.
Yeah.
Stinking.
I'm on the other side of Maine, so.
Okay, that's a good part of Canada, actually.
Yeah,
That's nice.
Most of the parts of Canada outside of Toronto, Vancouver. Well, there's parts of Edmonton that are still a little shady, but they get buried underneath snow most of the time. So
Have to learn how to make snow burn, then just clean those areas out. start fresh.
Well, Red's drifted from just crickets in the background to Canadian ethnic cleansing now.
Yeah, Canadian genocide.
Well, you don't want another population of 18 million Californians, do you? Because that's what you're gonna get.
No, we don't. Crap. I knew there was a flaw in my plan. First the crickets, now this. All right. I think that's a good place to wrap. So thank you very much, Mad Ruth. Thank you, Twitless, Aldous, and in absentia, as always, Moonshine. And
always a pleasure, man.
Thanks. So we'll see everybody real soon. I know we've got another review already kind of cooking. I've got something big planned for Cash Grab, so that's going to be a lot of fun. But,
I might have to call that one out since I'm actually involved in it.
Yeah. No conflicts of interest, please. But we do have things going, so everybody stay tuned and keep your ear out. So until next time, thanks a lot. Have a good night.